Okay, Justin has a question about when an automation will tie up an engine that's licensed, and basically if it, while the triggers are running and FME is checking to see if anything's been updated. So if, say, we're watching for an email that's incoming or checking a directory, if there's new files, the engines are not used. The engines are used if that automation is triggered and then the workspace runs. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so now we're going to move into basic automations. I am going to share my lab, so please make sure you've got follow presenter turned on. So basically, when you're building an automation, you're going to use triggers and actions, usually for sure, and then sometimes you will use external actions, and then some more. The split merge block we'll also cover tomorrow. It's a little bit more complex. And then automations also have annotations and bookmarks, which are basically the same as annotations and bookmarks in FME Workbench. We also have the manual trigger. And so basically this is where you would trigger off an automation manually by clicking the trigger button. It's mainly only used for testing your automations, make sure everything works, because if you are doing a resource or directory watch, maybe you don't want to send the file to the location every time to test your workspace running in the automation and an external action after that. Maybe you just want to easily trigger it off with a manual trigger. Manual triggers are also used in making automation apps. So we will look into that in a bit. But yeah, basically there's just a couple uses for them. Okay. So a client is a user or system that sends or receives a message. However, I like to look at FME Flow as kind of the middle person between clients. So we're receiving messages from clients, but then at the end of automations with our external actions, we can also send messages out to external clients as well. And so the trigger is what receives the incoming notification from the client. And then that trigger will kick off following actions. So in this screenshot, we can see we have a trigger and we can select a different trigger, or the trigger type, sorry, and then configure actions, whether that trigger is successful or not. Usually those are run workspace, but we can do other things like the log message or merge messages, like I said. A few of the most common triggers are a schedule, resource or network directory, or a webhook. Basically, schedules are when you want to process your data at a set time interval. The resource or network directory trigger we will look into in build versatile automations, but basically it can watch for whether a file is uploaded to a resource or network location and trigger the automation based off of that. And then a webhook receives JSON data from a webhook message from an external application and then processes it and triggers off the automation that way. And so actions process those messages and possibly send outgoing messages. So we have internal and external actions. The internal actions are always orange and the external actions are always blue. Generally, the internal actions are ones that send messages within FME Flow. So like running a workspace, automation's triggered, we're going to send a message to run workspace A. You could even configure it to run workspace A on engine A and be that specific with some of our engine routing and job queue rules. And then external actions are usually communicating with external clients. There is some external actions that send other messages within FME Flow, like creating a system event or notifying topics. Some of the most common external actions are sending an email. I see this one used all the time. It's great to attach to your workspace to both the failed and success ports, and then you can be alerted whether the workspace has failed or succeeded. Sometimes if it's running a lot, I'd only actually put it on the failure port because you're going to assume everything's running fine and you only need to be notified if it's not. FTP directory is another common one where you can upload files to your FTP site. And HTTP requests are also common where you can send a post request to specific URLs. Maybe that request will contain workspace results, or maybe it's going to kick off another downstream workflow in another application. So all these triggers and actions are basically what we call protocols of data exchange between FME Flow and the clients, or between FME Flow and FME Flow itself. This is a list of all our triggers and action, or all our protocols, and then we have marked over here whether it's just a trigger or action or both. So for example, email IMAP, we can only use IMAP servers as a trigger, but SMTP, we have both trigger and action options. So I'll let you look through that on your own in more detail. Basically, each protocol or action, sorry, I think I cut out. Every protocol is configured using the details panel, whether it's a trigger, action, or external action. So this is just an example of what configuring a resource or network directory trigger looks like. And so we have these different parameters to fill out. You'd want a directory to watch. You can include subdirectories or folders if you like, and you can also decrease this to only be create or only be modify events that you're watching for as well. And then a poll interval, which is how often that it's checking for any updates. Every different protocol has different parameters that you'll need to set. We'll see that later on. So now I'll give you 10 minutes to go through this lesson. Oh, nope, never mind. I joked. I'm joking. We're going to go through the exercise first. Sorry, guys.